Everything you said they already knew, more or less.
Well, here's something that you didn't know. 2 of those special atomic bombs haven't gone off.
As I was growing up, I was often confused when it came to spell certain words. Was it I before E or E before I? I'm sure I wasn't alone in feeling this way. It's okay, you can admit it. Soon enough, I was told that it's almost always I before E. In my quest to avoid as many spelling errors as possible, this rule was drilled into my head from a very young age. But now, at the age of 17, I've come to realize that the I before E rule applies to a much wider context, with consequences that are much more severe. IQ, or intelligence quotient, and EQ, or emotional quotient, lie on the opposite ends of the personality spectrum, and it seems as if there's a big, thick barrier preventing the fusion of the two to occur. Growing up in a culture where intelligence is valued over the expression of feelings, I know all too well the wider implications of I before E. We human beings are very lucky. We've got the most enhanced modes of adaptations, the most developed minds, and the most complex and beautiful set of social relations. All of this is only possible because of the high amounts of both IQ and EQ. The Homo sapien is a product of rationality that is often moderated and stimulated by our emotions. And this is what makes our cognitive functioning unlike that of any other organisms. However, it must be noted that while IQ refers to intelligence alone, EQ not only refers to our emotions, but also our emotional intelligence, which rates our ability to sense and accept the feelings of those around us. Most organisms are programmed to solely eat, grow, reproduce, and repeat. But as the lucky ones, with the most higher order thinking skills and the most complex set of emotions, we are destined and expected to do more. Hence, the combination of both emotion and rationality. Unfortunately, these two words are normally considered in isolation, and the value associated to each is not the same. In fact, if we were to place the two on either side of a weighing scale, IQ would most definitely tip that scale. As we all know, balance brings out the best in us. Therefore, as yin is to yang, IQ must be to EQ. Till date, IQ has gained a lot more popularity than EQ has. In fact, around 75% of us sitting over here would have at some point Googled up an online IQ test to see that maybe, just maybe, we could be considered geniuses. Unfortunately, the results aren't always as we'd expect, but that's okay. This just shows us how much we value our intelligence over everything else. IQ has also been around much longer than its emotional counterpart and has been popularized by intellectuals including Stephen Hawking and Albert Einstein. For a very long time, IQ has been a measure of our worth and value to society. EQ, however, has only recently come under the spotlight. In 1995, behavioral scientists began to emphasize the need of high EQ in the workplace and in our social lives. They even found that EQ was 4 times better a predictor of success than IQ has ever been. Now, we've watched enough shows like Sherlock, Scorpion, House MD, and The Big Bang Theory to know that having an extremely high IQ is not necessarily a wish come true. Protagonists in such storylines serve as the perfect examples of how an extremely high IQ does not compensate for being unable to comfortably interact with the people around us. On the other hand, we have people like Princess Diana and Mother Teresa who have been lauded for their humanitarian efforts. But do we know that much about their IQ? Not really. Believe it or not, we are pushing children in our society to be the embodiment of IQ alone. And you do not need to be especially smart to infer that this in no way will lead to the holistic development of that student. Compromise here is the key word. In order to reach a happy medium in any dilemma, there needs to be a healthy negotiation between the rational and emotional parts of your mind. We have been given the best of both worlds, and it would be wise to embrace or even exploit this combination. So, what do we do about this? Educationists must engage in educational reform. We must begin to promote social interpersonal soft skills training that will allow us to collaborate and communicate effectively with others. It is these 21st century skills that will allow us to coexist with the incoming technology. On your way back home, think about what small steps you can take to bring out the best in yourself. The next time you're in a disagreement, ask yourself the question, is what I'm going to say justifying my existence as both a rational and an emotionally aware human being? While it may be true that in the domain of spellings, I mostly comes before E, there is no reason to apply this convention to building your personality. We must remember that our brain is like Play-Doh, and our fingers are the environmental factors that press upon this Play-Doh to model it to something that looks a lot like the model prescribed in a guidebook. We could otherwise be using these fingers to mold the Play-Doh into something a lot more beautiful, and that requires pressing from both sides. The barrier between IQ and EQ must begin to become a lot more permeable if it is to allow the flow of ideas and resulting in ideas worth spreading. The tool to make that happen is in our very hands. Thank you.